पीयूष सर, लास्ट ईयर यूपीएससी ने 3 क्वेश्चंस को रूल आउट कर दिया. यूपीएससी को खुद पे कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं रहा अभी. नॉट इट वाज नॉट पॉसिबल ड्यूरिंग आवर टाइम सर. स्टेट सर्विसेज में होता था, यूपीएससी में कैसे हो गया?
yes, ऐसा हमने कभी सोचा भी नहीं था सपने में कि यूपीएससी क्वेश्चन बनाएगी और स्टेट पीसीएस की तरह बाद में फिर बोलेगी कि हमसे गलती हो गई और हम उसको हटा देंगे. इस साल भी मुझे हिस्ट्री के एक क्वेश्चन में डाउट, एंड इनफैक्ट दिस वाज नॉट द ओनली मिस्टेक. देयर इज अनदर लाइक थिंग दैट आई नोटेड डाउन. दिस वर बिट ट्रिकी, मेनली एसोसिएटेड विद द लैंग्वेज.
अगर वो इंग्लिश के साथ खेल रहे हैं तब तो सर वर्नाकुलर मीडियम के अगेंस्ट जा रहे हैं.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, यस. I have discussed with sir also, then sir also had been discussing the economics questions and the science and tech questions, and even since yesterday I talked to so many students, and there was a general complaint among the students that the language was bit tricky
for quantum technology.
Okay.
So that question could have been addressed from that particular magazine only. So Science Reporter is very important magazine along with newspaper.
So let me ask you from the point of CSAT, what did you feel about the paper?
First of all, it is lengthy. Okay, you need a lot of time to read it again and again, because in the first reading you can't exactly answer the question.
Hello friends, welcome to GS Score. Myself Viraj. Prelims 2025 has been conducted. आप लोगों ने आंसर कीज भी देख ली होगी. So to analyze the paper of Prelims 2025, I have a group of eminent faculties with me: Piyush Kumar Sir, Prince Mishra Sir, Rajvardhan Sir, and Gaurav Bansal Sir. So first and foremost to you, Piyush Kumar Sir. कल के पेपर के बाद what even evolutionary trend did you see?
Well, Viraj sir, मुझे लगता है कि कल का पेपर देखने के बाद somehow I reminded my old days, right?
Okay.
So when we used to write the UPSC pre, at that point of times, the nature of questions used to be very similar at that point of time.
Okay.
So what are the new trends that I can notice? That first of all, some conceptual questions were there, and in fact, even in the history part also, I found certain questions were there as such, which could be solved only once your concept is very sound. The second important thing that I found, that they have asked some current affairs questions which were as such, which used to be again like the previous style, in the previous style, such as sports, they have asked good number of questions from sports and some one-liner facts basically. So these kind of questions were there. Facts are always important, so as usual, facts were there even in this year also. So I believe that of course it was a new trend, right, of the questions, and UPSC keeps on changing its trend, so it is, I don't find it very surprising also. So concepts plus facts and plus some old pattern of questions, that could be easily noticed almost all, we can say across the papers.
Right. Sir, one specific question if I will take, looking at the language of the questions, तो जैसे हम लोग कल बात भी कर रहे थे नॉन कोऑपरेशन मूवमेंट का क्वेश्चन, that became tricky because of the way in which it was asked.
Very nice.
So,
Yes.
अगर आप कुछ
Of course, I believe that this is not a problem. This was not the problem only with the history questions.
Right.
In fact, I have discussed with sir also. Then sir also had been discussing the economics questions and the science and tech questions. And even since yesterday, I talked to so many students, and there was a general complaint among the students that the language was bit tricky. I believe that UPSC always does include this particular thing. They make the language bit tricky, and that is one of the game actually. Okay? So how much concentrated you are in the examination hall, it is the test of that, right? जैसे आप नॉन कॉपरेशन मूवमेंट की बात कर रहे थे उस क्वेश्चन की, अगर आप लोगों ने पढ़ने में थोड़ी सी गलती की, एक सिंगल वर्ड को अगर इग्नोर किया तो पूरा क्वेश्चन गलत हो जाएगा. साइंस एंड टेक में भी ऐसे क्वेश्चंस थे, इकोनॉमिक्स में भी ऐसे क्वेश्चंस थे. तो लैंग्वेज वाज ऑलवेज ट्रिकी, it always used to be tricky, and I believe that students should be very careful while reading the questions.
So you have been talking to students since yesterday. क्या माहौल है सर?
डर का माहौल है. After writing pre, specifically those who are writing the pre, they are very scared. In fact, those who are not writing, they are also very scared, because they simply ask this question that what should be our trend, right? In which way they should prepare, the pre for pre 2026 or 27. So I believe that students are yet not very very much settled that what would be the cutoff. Majority of the students are complaining that the paper was lengthy. That's one. The paper was conceptual, right? And in fact, they keep it in slightly toughest side, right? And in fact, couple of students told me, those who have already written the pre, that it was one of the toughest pre so far has come.
Please, sir, what is the expected cutoff?
For me, by looking the pattern of prelims examination of last 7-8 years, I can say that it will be 80 plus minus 5, not more than that. It will remain in this range, and whosoever is getting in this range, definitely they should not waste the next 14 days, 2 weeks time, and they should seriously start preparing for the mains examination.
Right, sir. And what did you feel with respect to, I would say, the change in weightage given to different subjects?
One thing is very sure, Viraj, that UPSC is giving a feeler like what they have experimented in last 4-5 years in the CSAT, the same thing they are experimenting in the GS also. Whenever you want to make the examination tougher, there are two ways. One is asking the question difficult question. Difficult question means that question is not being given in your conventional book, your study material. And the second way is asking the question that is given, but asking like in one question 4 statements, 3 statements, giving the question of half page. Now they are going this second option, means they are making the question paper so lengthy that almost lot of time students need to invest in the reading itself. They need to read, they need to apply their mind, and then they need to answer. So one thing is very clear, irrespective of the subject and weightage, that student, those who are going to appear in upcoming prelims examination, aspirant should focus on reading part, irrespective of the subject. They should read. And as far as the weightage is concerned, weightage is, I think, very much equally distributed for all the subject. Like in the geography, they have asked around 14-15 questions. Similarly, 13 question is from the environment. Same number of questions is being asked in the science and technology, economy. So weightage is good. And in fact, as Piyush Sir already said, that it is gives us glimpse of our days, like 10 years back, how the UPSC was asking the question, but with a caveat. The caveat is nature of the question is moving toward that, but with more lengthy paper. Lengthy paper means in 2 hours, solving that 100 question from outside of that arena, outside of that stadium, it is very easy to comment, but playing in that stadium in that 2 hours, it is going to be very tricky.
So during our times, we will solve the paper in 2 to 3 rounds. Now it looks a bit difficult.
Yes, it looks a bit difficult, and that is why the upcoming student needs to change their strategy.
Right.
They need to increase their reading speed, not only writing speed, because for the mains they are supposed to increase their speed of writing, but now they need to increase their speed of reading, and it will be a bit tricky for the students coming from the vernacular background. For what we cannot give any kind of explanation, but they also need to go for the reading lots of books.
Right.
So whatever the background you are coming, you need to make sure that you are reading, and of course it will always be beneficial if you will go for the English novel reading. It will improve your overall reading, and of course subject specific knowledge is required.
Are you reading any novel right now, sir?
Yes.
Which is it?
Just recently I have completed Psychology of Money, and presently I am reading one of my favorite that I have read a lot of time, Difficulty of Being Good. Difficulty of Being Good, I always recommend to all my students for the ethics also. It's a very good.
Rajvardhan Sir, science overall, I would say, is an ignored subject by students in prelims. This year, questions as such were not difficult, but what I saw, you may be able to explain it in a better way, they were integrated with other subjects. For example, polity, for example, governance, for example, economy. And there was lot of current affairs in it. तो जैसे हमारे टाइम पे होता था, we relied more on NCERTs और questions वहाँ से आते थे. अब you have to rely more on newspaper for science. So your views on it?
Sir, our lives are getting linked with science and technology. Right. Every aspect of science and every aspect of our life is getting linked to technologies like artificial intelligence, big data, IoT, and all. So that firstly got reflected in mains paper. Mains questions were like integrated questions. They asked disaster management with technology, right? So that is now getting reflected even in the science and technology. And if students have to address those kind of questions, it's very important to understand the technology from the concepts point of view. Because once you understand concept, you'll be able to understand the applications of that technology in other sectors as well. And UPSC these days, especially in 2025 prelims examination, have started asking such questions. So in order to prepare those kind of questions, you need to be aware of which technologies are in news. And that you can know in a better way from, let's say, current affairs, be it newspaper or monthly magazines. And once you are aware of technology, and once you, let's say, understand the concept, then you will be able to apply those concepts to different sectors where this technology has application, and that would help, that would come handy for these kind of questions. I will not say that it would be, let's say, 100% usable, but it would come handy if you have this kind of information.
And will magazines like Science Reporters help?
Yes, exactly. Right. For example, the question on marijuana, quantum technology-based question was asked in this particular examination, Majorana 1 technology. So that kind of question can be addressed based upon March Science and Science Reporter, because the theme of Science Reporter of month of March was quantum technology, because UN has declared this year as International Year for Quantum Technology. So that question could have been addressed from that particular magazine. So Science Reporter is very important magazine along with newspaper.
Right. Gaurav sir, now to you. Sir, your area of expertise is economic, but you also take interest in CSAT. So let me ask you, from the point of CSAT, what did you feel about the paper? What was your feeling?
First of all, it is lengthy. Okay, you need a lot of time to read it again and again, because in the first reading you can't exactly answer the question. So that is what is challenging, because if you are not concentrating enough, you may have to read it in fact 3 times. Sometimes many of the passages you read once, but it is difficult to answer from one reading. So this is number one challenge. Second, objectivity is sometimes missing. So you can't really say what you have answered is 100% universal answer for that particular question, because there can be an alternative approach also, and even while answering it, we might have to think that probably this is most likely, but there are other possible choices also, or there can be other possible choices also. So that also makes it difficult. And then, of course, difficulty level has increased in the last 3 years continuously for the DI section or for the other mathematics-based section. So that is as per the trend. But in English, I felt there was a big lack of objectivity.
And that is the reason that you feel कि answer keys में इतनी variations हैं?
Yeah, that is what is reported by the students. I've not seen keys by many of the institutions, but that's what students are saying. Sir, एक key में इतना आ रहा है, एक key में उतना आ रहा है. So मेरा clear होगा या नहीं होगा? एक key में 30 clear है, और एक की में मेरा 37 क्लियर है, इतना तक वेरिएशन है.
So that will again have a huge impact on cutoff.
Can be have.
Right. Piyush sir, last year UPSC ने 3 क्वेश्चंस को रूल आउट कर दिया. UPSC को खुद पे कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं रहा अभी. It was not possible during our time, sir. स्टेट सर्विसेज में होता था, UPSC में कैसे हो गया ये?
Yeah, I think what you are saying, Viraj, that is 100% correct. ठीक है. These kind of things were never true for UPSC.
Yes,
ऐसा हमने कभी सोचा भी नहीं था सपने में कि UPSC क्वेश्चन बनाएगी और स्टेट पीसीएस की तरह बाद में फिर बोलेगी कि हमसे गलती हो गई और हम उसको हटा देंगे. ठीक है. इस साल भी मुझे हिस्ट्री के एक क्वेश्चन में डाउट है कि वो क्वेश्चन जो है वो फिट नहीं है. दैट क्वेश्चन व्हिच वाज बेस्ड ऑन दिस हरिजन और द दलित वाला थिंग. ठीक है. I think these are called as human errors, right? But then when you have been making just one paper, and in fact this was not the only mistake. There's another thing that I noted down this time in the specifically in the history segment. उनके questions एक area में बहुत ज़्यादा concentrated है. ठीक है. अब अगर आप नॉन कॉपरेशन मूवमेंट को ले ले चौरी चौरा के साथ लिंक करके, तो 3 questions उसमें से आए हैं. I think when you are making the questions, you have to spread the questions across the syllabus, right? तो ये कोई बहुत अच्छा ट्रेंड तो मुझे नहीं लगा कि आपने एक ही जगह से 3-4 सवाल उठा के बना दिए. ठीक है. और कोई करंट अफेयर्स तो है नहीं कि करंट अफेयर्स में उसकी कोई यूटिलिटी थी जिसकी वजह से इतने सवाल आपने बनाए. ह्यूमन एरर हो सकते हैं, राइट, बट अगर साल में जब आपको एक पेपर बनाना हो
और इतने स्टूडेंट्स का करियर लाइन पे हो,
एग्जैक्टली, इससे काफी फर्क पड़ता है कि अगर एक सिंगल क्वेश्चन भी गलत हुआ तो उससे बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स के रिजल्ट पे फर्क पड़ सकता है. So I believe that UPSC should be very careful about this because UPSC does have a sort of standard and it is known for its standard, right? So they cannot go below. तो मुझे लगता है कि next time से UPSC has to be quite serious for this matter.
Right. And with respect to your own subject, sir, history. Now history this year looked doable.
Yeah, correct.
Otherwise it was like मतलब जैसे होता है ना कि ऑफ साइड के बाहर की बॉल है,
correct.
ठीक है, तो इस वक्त वो गुड लेंथ पे था. सो students did attempt those questions. तो आपका उसके बारे में क्या है, मतलब ओपिनियन क्या है सर?
Well, undoubtedly the questions in history this time they were doable questions. पहले जब लोग यूपीएससी का प्री दे के निकलते थे तो उनका एक ही सवाल होता था कि सवाल पूछते कहाँ से हैं और क्यों पूछा था, तो टॉर्चर करने के लिए पूछा था, ठीक है. there were certain questions coming from art and culture, they were as such they were like in fact it's not about that whether you are doing that question or not, right? Sometimes it actually breaks your morale also,
right?
कि ठीक है ना, यूपीएससी ने पूछा है तो इसका मतलब एक्सपेक्ट कर रही थी कि आप इसको जाने, ठीक है. तो मुझे लगता है कि वो एकदम बियॉन्ड द ट्रैक होता था और स्टूडेंट्स को काफी डीमोटिवेट करता था. और इनफैक्ट बीइंग ए हिस्ट्री स्टूडेंट लाइक और हिस्ट्री टीचर, आई ऑलवेज यूज्ड टू से और सजेस्ट टू द स्टूडेंट, यार जरूरी नहीं कि हिस्ट्री में सारे क्वेश्चन सही करो या फिर हिस्ट्री में इतना इमोशनली ले लो. खासकर जिनका ऑप्शनल होता है उनको लगता है कि हिस्ट्री हमारा ऑप्शनल है तो विल बी गेटिंग एन एज. वैसे क्वेश्चन में किसी को कोई एज नहीं मिलने वाला है, तो वो थोड़ा सा डीमोटिवेटिंग होता था और बहुत ट्रेडिशनल सोर्सेस से क्वेश्चंस नहीं आते थे. आप ऐसा नहीं कि जो है आप बहुत बल्कि किताबों को उठा के जो है आप उसमें से क्वेश्चंस बनाए, दैट वाज नॉट प्रैक्टिकल. दिस टाइम मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द क्वेश्चंस वर मेड फ्रॉम द रेगुलर सोर्स, दैट इज द लाइक अ गुड थिंग. तो रेगुलर सोर्स से आने से क्या होता है, अनडाउटेडली अभी भी हम 100% तो नहीं कर सकते थे. उसमें 3-4 क्वेश्चंस ऐसे थे जो बड़े कंफ्यूजिंग थे. मैंने पहले भी कहा कि लैंग्वेज किसी की बहुत ट्रिकी थी और वो ढंग से पढ़ना था. तो मैं ये तो नहीं कहूंगा सारे क्वेश्चंस डुएबल जो है थे. हाँ, ये है कि उन क्वेश्चंस को देखने के बाद ये फीलिंग आती है कि कहीं ना कहीं वी हैव गॉन थ्रू दिस पर्टिकुलर कंटेंट, so that is undoubtedly giving a sort of like a moral boost to the students. So that is good for the students. But yes, it can't be pretty sure that from the next time also UPSC is going to retain similar kind of question, because UPSC is known for doing stunts in pre-examination specifically. So I suggest to the students कि नहीं, now you have to be relaxed कि ठीक है UPSC ऐसा ही पूछेगी अब आगे से. It's not necessary.
तो कोई श्योर शॉर्ट एरियाज अब भी नहीं है?
नहीं, बिल्कुल भी.
गौरव सर, इकोनॉमी के 2 क्वेश्चन सीसेट से तो नहीं उठाए थे?
नहीं, वो बहुत इजी थे.
Okay.
Those questions were very easy. There were some numbers in them, so they appeared as if that tough numerical is asked or they're asking a mathematical question. Question was very easy. It was a testing of the concept actually, because the calculation part was elementary. One could do it second mentally actually.
Right.
So it was all about whether you know the formula of the primary deficit or not, whether you know the formula of revenue deficit or not. These are very basic ideas that everyone should have.
Right. So sir, will this change the way in which you conduct your class now? आप अभी numbers के साथ सिखाएंगे formula?
I always teach it anyways. We've always been doing that. Okay, so my students would have found it easy actually. So I would say they're asking questions which they used to ask in my time. When I used to appear 20 years ago, they used to ask some numerical, they used to ask some number-based question also, and it's not just about number-based. There is a lot of predictability, better predictability this year. For example, if you look at the economy section, one can argue about 16 to 20 questions are from either economy or some question you can claim maybe general GK, but 16 definitely are minimum from economy. Out of that, at least 12 to 13 questions one could easily answer if they just know their syllabus very well.
So
and randomness was lacking.
So your subject has grown on my expense, sir. Yes. Polity कम हुआ sir because of your subject.
No, economy has always been asked like that. 15 to 20 is a trend for last few years.
Piyush sir की वजह से?
नहीं, क्वेश्चंस ऐसा थोड़ी कि हिस्ट्री से क्वेश्चंस पहले नहीं आते थे. हिस्ट्री से क्वेश्चंस आते थे, लोग दूर से नमस्ते करते थे उसको, ठीक है. तो उनको कभी दिखे नहीं कि हिस्ट्री के इतने क्वेश्चंस आ रहे हैं. दैट इज द गेम.
तो इसमें क्या है ना, आप अगर देखेंगे कहाँ से क्वेश्चन पिक कर रहे हैं, तो उन्होंने करंट अफेयर को देखा तो है क्वेश्चन पिक करने के लिए, लेकिन करंट अफेयर के बेसिस पे क्वेश्चन नहीं बनाया. सो फॉर एग्जांपल, ईडी इज बीन इन न्यूज फॉर क्वाइट अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम. ऑपोजिशन इज आर्ग्यूइंग अबाउट ईडीज रोल, इंक्रीजिंग रोल, एटसेट्रा. दे डिडंट आस्क इट इन पॉलिटी. दे डिडंट आस्क अबाउट एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव रोल ऑफ ईडी. दे आस्क्ड अबाउट the ministry under which ED is there, the Ministry of Finance, and what is its function, which rule it enforces. So they asked a very basic standard question on the basis of something which was in news. For example, RBI surplus transfer is in news. Last year also it was in news, this year also. Now they asked a question which is very basic and theoretical. RBI source of money is from which activities? So they are not asking about numbers कि ये RBI के पास पैसा जो है कितना सरकार को दिया, क्या formula है. Instead they are asking RBI को profit कहाँ से होता है. So this is a basic fundamental thing. So they asked from theory, but the way on the, I mean, if you want to predict the question, you could predict them from newspaper. Sources are like that.
Okay. And what about economic survey, sir?
I would say 2 to 3 questions, but this question you could have read or prepared from other sources as well. They're not exclusively survey this year.
Okay. ठीक. Rajvardhan sir, Article 6, not of Indian Constitution, Paris Agreement.
That was in news.
That was in news, but so specific.
Yes, that question was specific, but that was expected because COP 29 was held in 2024 and the agenda for COP 29 was climate finance and carbon market. So Article 6 of of Paris Climate Agreement under UNFCCC talks about carbon market only. So that question, mostly students must have addressed that question because that question was expected because of the COP held in 2024.
Right.
So that was not very.
But sir, overall also, economy and environment, the questions
yes, they are getting
based upon policies
yes.
and they're very specific in
yes.
those policies also. For
yes.
example, in polity, if I say ना, एक general view किसी law का वो पूछ लेते हैं, but in environment that is not the case.
Not.
Okay, so how should a student prepare?
That can be prepared based upon the focus on recent COPs. Right. For example, every convention has its own conference of parties and mostly annually, biennially and whatever are the let's say time periods, frequency. So these COPs are held. So for example, in 2024, we had COPs of all 3 major conventions. And these things are important from the prelims perspective especially and even from the mains perspective given the analysis of PYQs.
Okay.
So that would help students to study these kind of things. Right? Based upon the analysis of PYQ, one can understand that, okay, the outcomes of COP and the things that are getting discussed in COP are important. So one should prepare from that perspective. That would help solving these kind of questions from environment and ecology.
Right. Piyush, Prince sir, overall a trend with respect to geography and more specifically I will ask mapping. Was there a change in the way in which they approached map or was it the same, sir?
In geography, Viraj, around 15 questions have been asked. But this year they have, again, in geography also, they have not justified the subject as it is. Because in geography, there are 2 major areas, world geography and the India geography. Right. They have completely discarded India geography.
Okay.
So they have asked only 1 question from the India geography. And again, it will be going to be helpful for students who are coming from the engineering background.
Right.
Because specifically if you will talk about the general candidate who are not having the geography optional. So I am talking about जिनका geography optional नहीं है.
Right, sir.
जिनका geography optional है तो उनको किसी भी लेवल का क्वेश्चन geography में पूछा जाता है तो टैकल कर लेते. लेकिन जो नॉन ज्योग्राफी ऑप्शनल के स्टूडेंट हैं जो इंजीनियरिंग बैकग्राउंड से आते हैं उनके लिए हमेशा जो फिजिकल ज्योग्राफी होता है दैट इज गोइंग टू बी वेरी इजी केक वॉक क्योंकि वहां पे एक इंजीनियरिंग बैकग्राउंड है साइंटिफिक बैकग्राउंड है एंड दे हैव आस्क्ड मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम दैट एरिया एंड इन फैक्ट थ्रू द क्वेश्चन दे हैव टच्ड अपॉन ऑल द मेजर थीम्स दैट आर in the news, right. Be it your climate aspect, be it your land aspect, be it your continental aspect, ocean aspect. So almost, if you will look out the questions, questions were pretty good. But as a geography teacher, I can say that definitely it was not justifiable for the non-science background. उनको थोड़ा दिक्कत आई होगी. और जो भी question भी पूछे गए थे, questions were bit tricky, mainly associated with the language.
Okay.
तो एक क्वेश्चन मैंने डिस्कशन में भी कहा है
कि मतलब व्हाट आई फील इज अगर वो इंग्लिश के साथ खेल रहे हैं तब तो सर वर्नाकुलर मीडियम के अगेंस्ट जा रहे हैं.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल यस एंड वी शुड नॉट हेजिटेट टू से दैट दिस काइंड ऑफ पेपर लैंग्वेज will always goes against that vernacular. जो हमारे रूरल बैकग्राउंड के स्टूडेंट्स हैं जिनको इतनी ट्रिकी लैंग्वेज नहीं आ रही, व्हाट इज दिस लैंग्वेज के बेसिस पे अगर क्वेश्चन आप बना रहे हैं, तो डेफिनेटली दैट इज नॉट जस्टिफिएबल. द सेकंड थिंग, एस्पेक्ट ऑफ मैपिंग की अगर हम बात करें, मैपिंग में भी दे हैव चेंज द पैटर्न. इन लास्ट 10 years द मैपिंग क्वेश्चंस वर एवरी टाइम इन द ज्योग्राफी, लेकिन मैपिंग में दे वर asking the questions like 50% India mapping, 50% world mapping, and in fact some of the year they have increased the number of mapping questions of the India. Now in UPSC examination, you are conducting UPSC examination to select bureaucrat for the country, and you are not asking a single questions of India mapping. That is not justifiable.
सब IFS ही बनेंगे ना.
सब IFS जाएंगे. Everyone is going to work in the Africa, and examiner, I don't know कि geography examiner, whosoever has set the paper, they might have some deeper interest in the Africa. So last year also they have asked a very specific lake in the Africa, and this time also they have gone for the Great African Rift Valley Tanganyika. So Africa से कुछ तो है, affection है, and they are ignoring the India. So for general candidate it is going to be because these are the area where students always rely कि mapping आएगा, India mapping आएगा, तो definitely rebus से आपके biosphere reserve से questions आएंगे तो हम cover करेंगे. So definitely this year they have asked world mapping, but of course as sir said that we cannot predict that what is going to happen in the upcoming year. The UPSC is known to do all these tricks to make the examination little bit tougher.
Sir, one more thing. Sports से questions they were asked this year, but थोड़ा सा I am unhappy because scores पूछ लिए sir खो-खो final के कि कितने difference से हरा दिया.
No, again the examiner is giving a hint कि ठीक है, ऐसा है कि आप केवल क्रिकेट हॉकी पे फोकस मत करिए, हमारे जो पुराने कन्वेंशनल स्पोर्ट्स है उसको भी थोड़ा, कबड्डी है, खो खो है, आप इन सब स्पोर्ट्स को भी थोड़ा फोकस करिए.
There was a bit laziness also in framing the question. उन्होंने क्या किया था, विमेन्स का स्कोर मेंस वाले स्टेटमेंट में डाल दिया था और मेंस वाला विमेन के सेक्शन में, तो इंटरचेंज करके दोनों स्टेटमेंट्स रॉन्ग करा दिए. थोड़ा तो मतलब सर मेहनत भी होना चाहिए.
कई बार मैं जब क्लास में कई बार कुछ चीजें डिस्कस करता हूँ, फैक्ट्स पे बात आती है, तो आई ऑलवेज यूज टू से वन थिंग कि लुक, व्हेन इट कम्स टू यूपीएससी दे मेंटेन ए स्टैंडर्ड, राइट. व्हेन इट कम्स टू पीसीएस एग्जामिनेशन दे गो फॉर ए डिफरेंट स्टैंडर्ड. अभी उधर ये भी पूछ सकते हैं कि गांधी जी के चश्मे का क्या नंबर था, ठीक है. तो अभी तक तो ये मैं स्टेट पीसीएस के लिए कह रहा था ना, आगे से आई विल चेंज माय स्टेटमेंट.
UPSC also they
कैन आस्क सच काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चंस.
आरती को करना
किसने दिया था, करेक्ट.
That was a very famous question.
Piyush sir, now let us talk about the transition. Next 1 week will be about transition now from prelims to mains examination, and this year the time between prelims and mains is the least. ठीक है, तो एक तरफ तो रिजल्ट का टेंशन है और दूसरी तरफ अर्ज है टू गो टुवर्ड्स मेंस एग्जामिनेशन. हाउ डज अ स्टूडेंट मेंटली स्टे काम?
I believe answering this question, Viraj sir, won't be very difficult for me. Look, majority of the students, those who have been appearing in this year, now if they, let's say, if they are not like clearing this pre, in that case, like they'll be preparing for the next year, right? Let's say if you have been going for the next year pre, right? Let's say you could not clear it. Even though, what should be the strategy? That you have to focus like on the mains preparation till the month of December. Right. Because if by the month of December you are ready with your mains preparation, it means that you can attempt 2026. Right. If not 100%, let's say 75%, right? That should be the right strategy. So look, the stress is naturally there, right? Specifically with those who are on the borderline, right? Or those like the condition is dicey with those candidates, the candidate condition is dicey. But I think you should take the break of the students should take a break of 2 to 3 days, because they have been preparing for the pre for last 5 months at least. तो ऑफ कोर्स एक सैचुरेशन तो आ ही गई होगी उनके अंदर, तो 1-2-3 दिन का ब्रेक लेना चाहिए उनको, जो अच्छा लगता है वो करना चाहिए. और बहुत जरूरी है आप रिचार्ज हो थोड़ा सा, और रिचार्ज होने के बाद मुझे लगता है कि irrespective of the result or any kind of question asking to yourself regarding the pre-result, they should go for the mains preparation. What is the best strategy in this particular period? At least they should try to cover their optional paper if not possible 100%, at least 50%. So what I'm suggesting to my students, those who are having history option, just pick up one area of paper 1, one area of paper 2, right? And just try to finish them. At least one solid revision should be there. Because the moment you are done with the 50% syllabus, it means that you are done with the 60 to 70% of the syllabus, right? Because ultimately you need to write 5 answers. तो 3 तो आपको एक तरफ से लिखने हैं. तो इस पीरियड में सबसे पहले बहुत स्ट्रैटेजिकली जो है दोनों एरिया से, दोनों पेपर से एक एक पार्ट कवर कर लीजिए. एंड आई थिंक इट इज वेरी मच एप्लीकेबल टू द अदर पेपर्स आल्सो. और जब ये हो जाता है तब तक रिजल्ट आ जाता है. ठीक है. There is nothing to lose, right? If you have of course everybody is not going to pass. It is also true कि अब फेल होने के बाद मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द लोग जो है वो दूसरे अटेम्प्ट के लिए जाएंगे. तो इस टाइम को मिसयूज करने से कोई फायदा नहीं है. मुझे लगता है एकदम एक्सटेंसिव प्रिपरेशन होनी चाहिए. आई हैव ऑल्सो रिटन द एग्जाम. आई नो द स्ट्रेस लेवल. मैं समझ सकता हूँ. ठीक है, ऐसा नहीं है. बट मुझे लगता है थोड़ा प्रैक्टिकल होकर सोचना, क्योंकि टाइम क्रंच बहुत ज्यादा है. पेपर paper, I think this is one of the reasons. I tell you very frankly, Viraj, this is one of the reasons because of what I could not clear UPSC finally. As I also eagerly waiting for the result of the pre. Because since I was writing between 2010 to 2012, CSAT was introduced at that point of time, right? So people were very unclear about the patterns and all. अभी तो फिर भी थोड़ी clarity है. हमारे टाइम पे बहुत unclarity होती थी. तो मुझे मेरे साथ क्या होता था कि I started reading, but I was impatiently waiting for the pre-results, and that was the killing of time. And in fact, it is one of the major reasons because of what I suffered. So that's why I won't suggest this to the students.
ठीक है सर. Now coming to GS paper 3, आपको राजवर्धन सर को मैं यहाँ पे थोड़ा कॉर्नर करूंगा. सर, GS paper 3 में हो क्या रहा है? Students are not able to score in mains, sir. And how should students now approach GS paper 3?
This is happening because they're going back to theory. Okay. So what students started doing in the last 1 decade was that they would read current affairs, they would follow newspapers, or they would have general information about what is happening. But if something is asked in depth, for example, if I ask you what are the principles of taxation, hardly 5 students out of 50 will be able to write the principles of taxation. But if I'll ask what are the recent changes in the GST, they will be able to write. So 10 years ago, 5 years ago, those type of questions were coming, and they were, अगर पूरा आइडिया भी नहीं होता था तो कुछ लिखाते थे क्योंकि एक फेमिलियरिटी होती थी टॉपिक से. नाउ दे आर आस्किंग व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन करंट अकाउंट एंड कैपिटल अकाउंट. सो इफ यू हैव नॉट गॉन थ्रू द कॉन्सेप्ट्स वेरी वेल, आप उसमें 4 लाइन भी नहीं लिख पाएंगे. इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू इन्वेंट समथिंग on that. Okay, about GST, at least you could write various other facts that you know about GST, even if not very much sticking to the topic. So इसीलिए अब थोड़ा सा ये difficulty आ रही है students को. They are finding it bit difficult that if they have not gone through theory very well, if they do not know the concepts very well, they are not going to get any mark in that question. Okay. So this is one of the reason in economics, although those questions are easy, I'm not saying paper is becoming difficult. I'm just saying paper nature is changing. So those students who know their theory, who have gone through the proper books, okay, and they will not find it very difficult.
So and करे क्या बच्चे सर? मतलब it is easy for you, it is not so easy for them. So what should they do, sir?
Make preparation more concepts oriented, instead of being facts oriented.
ठीक है.
Okay, conceptual clarity के लिए जाएं और थोड़ा सा syllabus के साथ उसको, let's say अगर UPSC को हम देखेंगे 2016 से पहले पेपर में बहुत रैंडम क्वेश्चन आते थे. अभी वो बहुत स्ट्रिक्टली सिलेबस पे पूछ रहे हैं.
राइट.
दे आर नॉट आस्किंग एनीथिंग व्हिच इज नॉट इन सिलेबस. फॉर एग्जांपल, बैंकिंग इज वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट एरिया इन इकोनॉमिक्स. Financial markets, RBI, these are all very big areas. But in last 7 years or 8 years, there is not a single question because this is not mentioned in syllabus. So that's why they are not asking question from this area now in mains. They're strictly asking what is clearly given in the syllabus. And in fact, what they are doing, अगर उसमें एक नोटिसेबल ट्रेंड देखें, एग्रीकल्चर में उन लोगों ने एग्जैक्टली पिछले 4-5 साल में उस एरिया को टच किया जिसपे प्रीवियस 20 इयर्स में कभी क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछा गया. सो एनिमल हस्बेंड्री वाज वन एरिया फ्रॉम वेयर नेवर देयर वाज अ क्वेश्चन, बट दे आस्क्ड इन आई थिंक 18 और 19. देन फूड सिक्योरिटी, okay, they asked. Then food processing industry, तो anyways they asked now 3 times in the last 6 years. So likewise, जो neglected areas थे ना, उन पे भी एक-एक करके क्वेश्चन पूछा. तो ऑलमोस्ट सिलेबस मैपिंग कर रहा है यूपीएससी. सो गो थ्रू PYQ वेरी वेल. एक तो ये देखिए सिलेबस के कौन से एरिया से क्वेश्चन नहीं आया है. दूसरा, सिलेबस के अकॉर्डिंग पढ़िए थोड़ा.
सो सर, आप बोल रहे हैं कि सिलेबस से ज्यादा स्टिक होके क्वेश्चन पूछ रहे हैं.
यस. अभी पूछ रहा हूं, पहले नहीं पूछ रहा।
राइट, बट करंट अफेयर्स ओरिएंटेशन उतना नहीं है जितना पहले था।
यस,
सो प्रेडिक्टेबिलिटी बढ़ी है या कम हुई है?
आई वुड से बेटर है।
ओके,
यस, दिस इज बेटर प्रेडिक्टेबिलिटी बिकॉज आपने एक बार सिलेबस पढ़ा, फाइनाइट सिलेबस है, देन क्वेश्चन इज गोइंग टू बी फ्रॉम दैट एरिया, 1 or 2 एक्सेप्शन कैन बी देयर,
ओके,
बट एक्सेप्ट दैट देयर इज नन। सो एक्सचेंज रेट पे या डोनाल्ड ट्रंप के टैरिफ पे अगर वो पूछ लेते तो दैट इज डोमिनेटिंग द न्यूज हेडलाइंस। सो वो सिलेबस से नहीं भी है तो एक क्वेश्चन ऐसा है, अदरवाइज एवरीथिंग एल्स इज फ्रॉम सिलेबस। पहले हमारा शिकायत होता था सिलेबस से बाहर पूछते हैं, अभी नहीं है, अभी इट्स स्ट्रिक्टली फ्रॉम सिलेबस।
स्टूडेंट ही कैसा जो शिकायत ना करे सर। ओके, सो अदर एरियाज ऑफ जीएस पेपर 3, साइंस एंड टेक, environment and disaster management. More or less, you take care of these 3 areas. So, walk me through the questions, the way in which questions are asked in these 3 areas, one by one. Sir.
Okay. So, I would like to firstly talk about science and technology. So, as Sir has pointed out, concepts are very important even in science and technology. Right? So, if we take some questions that UPSC has asked in last few years, there are 2 things that can be vividly seen in the questions. First, questions are purely concept oriented questions. If you are aware of planetary defense mechanism, you can solve question, right? And second thing that I would like to point here is information, very specific information, right? For example, in 2023, they asked about Chandrayaan-3, and in that question, there was subpart wherein they asked about role of one of the institutes under ISRO, VSSC, Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, what role that center played in the launch of Chandrayaan-3. So that is very specific information. So students have to focus upon current affairs, and when they get hint of, let's say, topics that are important from the exams point of view, they should prepare that particular topic 360-degree. Concepts they should be aware of. They should be aware of the factual information related to that topic, right? So that would help, let's say, students solve questions from science and technology. And again, whenever they prepare for this subject, stick to the syllabus. Okay, because syllabus of science and technology is very well defined by UPSC, right? So whatever things that are there, whichever technology is mentioned in the syllabus, it is very important to have good understanding of that, especially of technologies that are in use. Right? Because Chandrayaan-3 was launched in August, question was asked in September. Right, so that happens. Right. Similarly, planetary defense mechanism. There was one mission carried out by NASA in 2023. Question was asked in 2024's mains examination. Right. So current affairs is very important from science and technology's point of view. That gives a hint from static syllabus which topics you should read, which topics you should focus more upon.
So can we expect questions from defense technology this year because of operations in
yes, obviously. Yes, we can expect questions, especially on the new age technologies, like, let's say, drone, SWAM technology especially, and how Indian military, Indian defense is taking care of those kind of, let's say, attacks on India. Right, here we'll have to focus upon air defense mechanism that we have in our India, that we have in our country, like S-400, we have ballistic missile defense, all those air defense mechanisms one should focus upon. Right. So that is about science and tech. Now, if we talk about environment and disaster management, those who have written mains of 23, 24, they must have written answers. It's not that the questions are very difficult to write answers. But for environment and disaster management, what is getting important is examples. Right, case studies, because UPSC, if we see last year's 2024's paper, the question was on EIA. Now, EIA is not very difficult topic. One, if student is writing mains, he or she must have studied EIA because that is mentioned explicitly in the syllabus. Right. But what question UPSC asked? UPSC asked about the role of, let's say, environmental activists, NGOs in EIA.
Right. So there was integration of governance and environment.
And UPSC asked, give 4 specific examples with specific details. Now, those kind of things are making let's say, answer writing for environment and disaster management difficult, because these are the subjects where you cannot just argue. You also have to substantiate that argument based upon example, and if that example is current, then that would fetch good marks, right? It's not that students are not writing answers for these questions, they're writing, but thing is that examples, case studies that are to be quoted are lacking. So if students prepare for the topics mentioned in the syllabus, and if they get current developments, current let's say case studies, examples, and if they can quote those examples in answers, it would be easier for them to fetch good marks. GS3 is not the paper that cannot be solved, right? If I give, let's say, paper right now to students, they'll be able to write answers, but they'll have to make answers more specific. And that is possible based upon facts, figures, data, case studies. Right? That is what is to be done, especially for environment and disaster management.
Right.
Before we proceed, somehow we missed to ask you that since you teach polity, IR, and governance wala area, right? So, what is your say on the questions coming this year in the pre? What was the what was the nature
Very
of the questions?
straightforward, sir. Very straightforward. Matlab, if in one area they have complicated things, so I feel in polity they have made life easier for students. Apart from one question, jo schedule.
But I'm sorry for the interrupting, but I came to know that many students had been complaining that the language was not very simple even in the polity area also.
एक question में sir, in one question, the language was such कि it created a bit of ambiguity.
Okay.
मतलब same problem जो non-cooperation movement वाले question में है ना, it did create a bit of ambiguity. And other was the question on schedule 10.
Okay.
ठीक है, इन दो क्वेश्चंस में बच्चों को प्रॉब्लम हुआ रहेगा. अदरवाइज पॉलिटी ओवरऑल वाज बेस्ड अपॉन दैट वन बुक जो सब लोग पढ़ते हैं.
अच्छा.
सारे क्वेश्चंस उसी बुक में से थे मोर और लेस, और सारे क्वेश्चंस मेरे लेक्चर्स से थे.
That's really good. Okay. One more thing, we have discussed about paper 3, paper 1, GS paper 3, paper 1, right? So can you suggest now something that how the students should go for paper 2, general studies GS paper 2, because that is precisely based on this IR, polity, IR and governance, right? So just can you suggest something which are very important to the students?
Sir, basically paper 2 में there is integration of two subjects. मतलब one is totally current affairs oriented, that is international relations, and other is mix of current and static. तो अगर मैं पॉलिटी की पहली बात करूं, so I want students to first and foremost go through the current affairs of last 1 year, and then map those topics with the static part, और उन्हीं static parts को अभी पढ़िए, पूरा बुक मत पढ़िए, because UPSC has the habit of asking questions on those provisions of constitution जो न्यूज में. For example, 2 साल पहले they had asked question on election procedure of Indian president and French president. Now the reason for that was कि दोनों presidents का election just 1 month पहले हुआ था. उसी तरह से last year Western concept of secularism was in question.
No, it was there.
So what they did was they again asked question on comparison between Indian concept of secularism and Western concept of secularism. जहां तक IR की बात है, questions are from those areas जो सबसे ज्यादा न्यूज में है. In IR एक आध question what they are doing is they are taking up one of question from the 4 questions that they asked in IR from some new tool of IR. For example, climate change. So climate change now is a tool in IR. IR. तो वो उस तरह से किसी नए टूल के बेसिस पे इंडिया का अप्रोच पूछते हैं. That's it, sir.
Considering IR, since there were so many developments in the recent times, right? So either it's Russia, Ukraine war, or be it India-Pakistan relation, or India-America relation, India and some India's relationship with some other countries during the recent developments. So what do you think that what might be the possible areas of questions from the recent developments?
Sir, first and foremost, if you look at the questions, so one question will be from our neighborhood.
Okay.
One question will be from one of the regions. For example, Central Asia. For example, Africa. One question will be with respect to India's relation with a superpower.
Okay.
And the last question will be with a new tool in international relations. तो अगर मैं predict if I have to focus upon कि क्या question हो सकता है on the basis of regions, Indian subcontinent, तो it will either obviously be Pakistan or it will be Bangladesh.
Okay, correct.
Because of the recent development. If we take into consideration region, so there is strong orientation of that region, at least this year, being West Asia.
Okay. Yeah, correct.
West Asia. And if we talk about an important superpower, so there are only two possibilities, either Russia or United States. Either Russia or United States, because China is not dominating the news right now when it comes to India's international relations.
Correct.
And finally, if I take into consideration a tool, तो again मतलब मैं UPSC तो नहीं हूँ, but what we can see is artificial intelligence, how it has converged and also diverged nations.
Okay.
ठीक है, तो in that way if मतलब अगर क्वेश्चन artificial intelligence as a tool in international relation हम लोग view करें, तो there is a strong possibility, sir. There is a strong possibility. Okay, sir, can I go?
Please continue. I had this curiosity. That's why, like,
Thank
I
you,
asked
sir.
this. Please continue.
Prince sir, let us now talk about GS paper 1. मतलब आपके पास, फिर then I will come to you. Then we'll go to your optionals also, respective optionals also. Sir, now what do you see as a difference that students should take up? मतलब क्या difference है between अभी तक जो geography पढ़ा prelims के लिए और अब वो पढ़ेंगे, उसमें क्या difference आएगा?
First of all, as far as GS1 geography portion is concerned, geography is the only out of all the conventional subject, there can be one more subject, but geography is one of the subject where the differentiation between the pre and mains is almost negligible. So you cannot say that this is for the prelim, this is for the mains. More or less, syllabus is going to be same. The main difference when it comes to the mains examination is that mains is heavily oriented to the human and economic aspect, where they have some of the options of bringing the application part, where they have some of the orientation to bring those discussion where the current or contemporary issues can be included. So a student needs to go through with the, at least for the 5-6 months, whatever the major things that are associated, like within that context of international relation, we have an energy crisis. Energy crisis, they always ask a question. In fact, one of the very focus area where every time they are asking the question, and now they will mix the IR plus the geography, that is the Indus Water Treaty. Because water is some of the area which always dominate in the mains examination. Roughly one question, sometimes they can go beyond one question, they ask two questions. And this water is associated with the Himalaya, that climate change, glaciers. So these things needs to be integrated. Means in the mains examination for this 2025, a student should immediately in the next 10-15 days, they should revise all their static part, but over and above, they need to look out for the contemporary issues.
Right. And sir, what about map and drawing maps?
As far as the mains examination is concerned, the utility of the map is to utilize in your answers. It will help in the presentation.
Right.
So like case studies example, the geography will have the one of the best tool, that is the mapping. But mapping, it will always be suggestive for the student to go for the India specific map and try to learn to draw small map, because the map should complement your answer. It should not appear like you are just trying to fulfill the pages, you are just trying to escape because you are not having the content and you are drawing half page map. तो वो चीज का भी थोड़ा ध्यान, क्योंकि जीएस वाले जो बच्चे होते हैं, खास करके जिनका ज्योग्राफी ऑप्शन नहीं होता, आई यूज्ड टू से लॉट इन माय क्लासेस कि वो कुछ बचने का रास्ता तैयार करके आते हैं, अपने पास से कुछ पुराने हथियार लेके आते हैं, और उस एक हथियार में सबसे पहले होता है कि जैसे ही आंसर लिखना शुरू किए एक गोला बनाए और उस गोले में 3-4 एरो लगाए, वो सूरजमुखी वाला. सो दे विल हैव टेंडेंसी टू डू दैट. डोंट डू दैट. डोंट ट्राई टू बी प्रेडिक्टेबल. तो किसी क्वेश्चन में आप फ्लो चार्ट, किसी क्वेश्चन में मैप में जो ऑप्शनल में सजेस्ट करते हैं, इनफैक्ट सम ऑफ द स्टूडेंट कैन गो एंड अप्लाई इन द जीएस आल्सो. Go for the sectional map. Let's say there is some questions related to the Indus water, so no need to draw the entire map of India. Just draw the northern side where you can show the Indus map or Ganga map. So this way you can give the presentation also, and you can save some of the time, because in general whosoever, if they are going to draw the map, India map, at least it will take 15-20 seconds. And if you look out that 15-20 seconds from the 10 question perspective, so it is going to take up at least 3-4 minutes, and that is going to be very crucial.
Right. Now, Piyush sir, to you, can we expect questions in mains also from history to be, to be increased. I would say world history जो है एक तरह से ignored area है. So what is your opinion after looking at prelims का paper?
Well, I think that is very tough to answer that question, that whether they are going to ask the question from the world history this year or not. Because this is known by only two entities, right? One is UPSC and second is God, right? उन्हीं को पता होगा कि क्या पूछने वाले हैं. And unfortunately, I'm not having any link in the UPSC that I can tell you that, like, what kind of questions they are going to ask. Yes, what pattern I have mostly noticed, like, we can actually assume the things on the basis of patterns. So I can just say one thing, ki in mains, they are precisely confining in the areas of modern India and then art and culture, right? So, like, they are asking one 10-marker question in art and culture, one 15-marker question in art and culture, and then rest of the questions are coming from modern India. Roughly, the questions from 80 to 90 marks, they are coming from history, right? And in fact, one more thing I would like to say, that these days they have started, like, asking the interdisciplinary kind of questions, right? So I still remember that question which was asked on Panipat, right? So majority of the students were wondering if this is a history question, but it was more like a geography question rather than a history question. So it was, again, I won't say it was precisely the geography question. It was basically a sort of, like, interdisciplinary question. There might be very good, like, such questions from society and history, right? Because, and in fact, like, when you have been attempting the society questions, you need to give, like, little bit background also, like, and then that you can find in history only. So it is very tough to confine it within a limit, ki, okay, whether they are increasing the number or not. They can ask these kind of interdisciplinary questions, right? That's number one. And you should be ready for these kind of things. Second, like art and culture, it may be ignored, like, in the pre, but then it is definitely going to come in the mains examination. So you can't ignore it. So identifies those important areas such as Bhakti movement is there, like, Buddhism and Jainism remain quite ignored this year in the pre. In that case, we can, like, expect it in the mains this year. And then the way, like, I told you that they had focused on few areas of modern India. So now, like, they can go to the other areas while asking the questions in modern India. So that is how you need to, like, let's say, identify certain topics and you need to prepare them. That would be the strategy. And just be ready for those interdisciplinary questions.
Right. Piyush, Prince Sir, geography as an optional, optional in general, and then we'll come to geography. How to balance it now? क्योंकि पढ़ना भी है, रिवाइज भी करना है, लिखना भी है, and we have more or less 95 days now.
Precisely, it is around 89 days.
Sorry.
And already 1 day, so it left with only 88 days.
और उसके ऊपर पीयूष सर ने बोला 2 दिन रिलैक्स.
At least, yes, that is very important. And in fact, it should be not less than 2-3 days. क्योंकि आपको रेज्यूमिनेट करना है और रेज्यूमिनेट करेंगे तभी रिवर इरोजन ज्यादा करेगी. अगर पुरानी रिवर होगी तो फिर वो लॉस्ट हो जाएगी. इट विल बिकम इनलैंड रिवर. सो द पॉइंट इज दैट इन 88 डेज इफ यू लुक आउट फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ ऑप्शनल, जो बच्चों की टेंडेंसी है स्टूडेंट की, आई थिंक इट इज not more than 70 days. Because before the examination 6-7 days they will not read the optional. So roughly it is 70 days matter. Now in that 70 days matter you need to do all these things. So if someone who has not studied the optional, any optional, जनरली क्या होता है कि जैसे मई में एग्जाम है तो मार्च से बच्चे पढ़ना छोड़ देते हैं. खास करके ऐसी ऑप्शनल का जिसका कोई लिंकेज नहीं है. जैसे जो कन्वेंशनल हमारी ऑप्शनल है, हिस्ट्री है, ज्योग्राफी है, पॉलिटी है, तो अगर आप ऑप्शनल ना भी पढ़ रहे हो तो आप जीएस में तो पढ़ ही रहे हैं, तो आप सब्जेक्ट से टच नहीं खत्म हुआ. लेकिन बाकी सब्जेक्ट्स में तो और मुश्किल हो जाता है क्योंकि आपका 3 महीने 4 महीने से टच खत्म हो गया. और ऑप्शनल का गेम इस तरीके से, अगर आप 3 से 4 महीने ऑप्शनल के टच से बाहर हैं, द मोमेंट इस साल लुकिंग आउट द टॉपिक्स, तो आपको ये लगेगा कि ये लैंड फॉर्म मैंने पढ़ा हुआ है कि नहीं पढ़ा हुआ है. रीजनल डेवलपमेंट ये ज्योग्राफी का ही सिलेबस है, किसी दूसरे ऑप्शनल का तो सिलेबस नहीं उठा. इट हैपेंस. And in that situation, what happens? Some of the student will start looking out the escape. So escape route is, ठीक है अभी ethics पढ़ लेते हैं, अभी essay पढ़ लेते हैं, अभी GS कर लेते हैं. And lot of time, lot of students just not able to qualify the examination just because they have not followed the optional preparation properly. So my suggestion will be, if you have the notes, so in next 15 days, just revise the note. कोई भी टॉपिक, कोई भी चैप्टर अगर आपके नोट्स में नहीं तो उसके लिए परेशान ना हो. सबसे पहले जितने भी आपके, लेट्स से 20 चैप्टर में से आपके पास 15 चैप्टर के नोट्स है, तो 15 चैप्टर के नोट्स आप 15 दिन में रिवाइज कर लें. Join some test series program, answer writing program. Again, guided answer writing program is very important, specifically for the newcomer.
Right.
Because the newcomer needs to understand there is a gap between the demand and supply. Might be you have studied well और आपने बहुत अच्छा आंसर लिख रहे हैं, तो आप अच्छा आंसर लिख रहे हैं फ्रॉम योर पर्सपेक्टिव. हो सकता है कि जो एग्जामिनर की जो सब्जेक्ट की डिमांड हो, दैट कैन बी समथिंग डिफरेंट. सो दैट इज व्हाई द गाइडेड आंसर राइटिंग इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. And later on, if they will get some time, so definitely they try to cover the areas that they have not covered. So in that case, if they want, so definitely they can go for some crash course, some revision program where the revision can be done. So this should be the.
Are we offering such programs?
Yes. We at GS Score is offering for the crash score in almost all the optionals, and the target will be that in the 25-30 days we will go for the complete revision.
Okay.
So specifically for those students who have not studied the optional for last, let's say 3 months, 4 months, तो जैसे आपने फरवरी में आपने ऑप्शनल नहीं पढ़ा है और फरवरी तक भी आपने ऑप्शनल पढ़ा, हो सकता है 20 चैप्टर में से आपके 12 चैप्टर के नोट्स हैं, लेकिन 7-8 चैप्टर आप बिल्कुल ब्लैंक हैं. तो बिल्कुल ब्लैंक होने से अच्छा है कि यू गो फॉर द वेरी फास्ट रिवीजन, जहां पे यू विल गेट एन आइडिया एंड स्पेसिफिकली वी विल कवर दोज एरियाज, दोज टॉपिक जहां से क्वेश्चंस आपको मिलेगा ही मिलेगा. सो यस, वी आर ऑफरिंग द क्रैश कोर्स.
And is this crash course thing available for GS students, sir?
Yeah, it is there. It is
GS में भी हम लोग
Yeah, of
offer
course.
कर रहे हैं.
I think the same strategy which is applicable to the optionals, like students would follow for the GS papers also. And we believe that at the end moment, if such kind of crash courses are revising the content, and that is one thing. And the second thing which is very important, that the way Prince Sir had been discussing, there are certain areas where the students are students are finding it difficult, right? So instead of covering those topics by their own, they should rely on some source. ठीक है, आसानी से मिल जाए. और मुझे लगता है कि हर टॉपिक पे जो सिलेबस, आप लोग अभी सिलेबस की बात कर रहे थे कि स्टिक टू द सिलेबस, सर वाज टेलिंग, लाइक राजवर्धन सर वाज आल्सो टेलिंग द सेम थिंग. आई थिंक इट इज द कोर ऑफ यूपीएससी, राइट? और अगर सिंपल सी बात है कि एक टॉपिक दिया हुआ है और आपको लगता है मेरे पास इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं है, सो इंस्टीड ऑफ फाइंडिंग इन्फॉर्मेशन और फाइंडिंग इन्फॉर्मेशन इन बुक और टेकिंग इट फ्रॉम एनी वेबसाइट और द इंटरनेट, इट इज गुड टू कंसल्ट अ टीचर एंड गेट द मटेरियल फ्रॉम देयर. प्रोसेस कुछ भी हो सकता है. आई एम नॉट सेइंग कि इट इज पॉसिबल ओनली थ्रू क्रैश कोर्स. Like if you're having a very kind of personalized relationship with the teacher, you can ask for him for that particular material, but don't try to search these kind of things by their own. Don't waste your time. Take it from take any reliable source, reliable write-up on that particular topic precisely, and then finish it. That would be the one thing. I would like to just add one more thing what Prince Sir had been saying. Prince Sir said that those who are newcomers, they should definitely go for the writing. I would like to just add one thing. The way Sir beautifully told one thing, ki for last, why to say February or March? I think now the PT is so competitive that students are leaving studying of optional or let's say for the mains from the January onwards, right? So there is a gap of 5 months, and 5 months really matters, right? So when even those who have already written the mains before, they should also go for the writing, because राइटिंग इसलिए भी जरूरी है दैट यू कैन एक्लेमेटाइज बेसिकली, राइट? आपको वो फिर से उस प्रैक्टिस में आ जाए कि प्री में आपको गोले भरने हैं और उस गोले भरने से निकल के अभी वो लिखना है. एंड लिखना इज नेवर आसान, ठीक है? आपने कितना लिखा है पास्ट में वो दिक्कत है. मैं आई जस्ट शेयर वन थिंग कि आई वाज ऑफ कोर्स आई डिड माय मास्टर्स एंड बाय दैट टाइम आई हैड दिस हैबिट ऑफ राइटिंग. बट मास्टर्स लिखने के बाद व्हेन आई वेंट इनटू एमफिल एंड देन आई स्टार्टेड वर्किंग मोर ऑन द लैपटॉप, एंड देन इट वाज द सेम पीरियड व्हेन आई वाज राइटिंग द मीन्स आई वाज फेसिंग डिफिकल्टीज. तो अब थोड़ा भी गैप होता है तो लिखने में प्रॉब्लम शुरू हो जाती है. सो अगर आपको लगता है कि कंटेंट पूरा रेडी है आपका, इवन दो यू शुड गो फॉर सम राइटिंग प्रैक्टिस और ऑप्शनल के लिए, क्योंकि वहां पे उस 3 घंटे में कैसे चीजों को बैलेंस करना है, क्वेश्चंस को कैसे सेलेक्ट करना है, ठीक है, और हमें कैसे प्रायोरिटी देनी है, अगर हमारा कुछ एरिया छूट रहा है तो उसको वापस कवर अप कैसे करना है. तो इट इज actually teaching you several things, and that's why test series you can't avoid. And if you feel that certain gap is there in the content or let's say some concept, in that case you can go for the crash courses also.
गौरव सर, करंट अफेयर्स के लिए अब एक बच्चा क्या करे जो ऑलमोस्ट वर्ज है पास होने के या कट ऑफ क्लियर कर चुके हैं, क्या करे?
See, first of all, there are two things that we need to understand. For PT, current affairs are different,
Right,
For mains, what we have to prepare is more like contemporary issues. And in the contemporary issues, we have to focus on those areas which dominate the headlines and which remain in use for various reasons, and something which are more debatable. And sometimes there can be a random question about some sparse development. Let's say there is some new engine developed, let's say Kaveri 2 engine. They might ask a question in the mains in the science and technology area, but generally such questions are less, and more questions are about some recent developments, some debate, some issue, some human right issue. For example, let's say they might ask a question about circular economy, that how circular economy is important and what is its contribution in the going time. Okay, and then you have to link it with question to उन्होंने circular economy पे पूछा, but you should be able to link it with the recent issue that people are now leading a movement in Europe and USA regarding right to repair. So उन्होंने पूछा नहीं है, लेकिन जब तक आपको एक ब्रॉडर अवेयरनेस नहीं, तो कहने का मतलब है कि पिछले 2-3 साल से जो चल रहा है, आपका जनरल क्यूरियोसिटी जब तक नहीं होगा, ये बहुत डिफिकल्ट है आंसर करना. फ्रेमवर्क में एक ही पूछा है, बट उसको कितनी कितनी जगह लिंक करके आप कितना एक ब्रॉड डायमेंशन दे सकते हैं, दैट इज ओनली पॉसिबल व्हेन यू हैव नेचुरल क्यूरियोसिटी. जैसे सर बोल रहे थे कि जनरल रीडिंग बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, सो फिक्शन पढ़े, नॉन फिक्शन पढ़े, लेकिन रीडिंग बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है कि आपने कम से कम डेली 20 पेज पढ़ा है. अगर सिलेबस का नहीं पढ़ा तो उस दिन आपने कुछ किसी की बायोग्राफी पढ़ी है, कुछ नॉन फिक्शन से या कुछ हिस्ट्री पढ़ा है, कुछ ना कुछ आपको पढ़ते रहना है ताकि आपकी एक स्पीड कहीं बनी रहे, और प्लस आपका एक डेली प्रैक्टिस. इसी तरह डेली लिखना भी जरूरी है. आप अगर आंसर प्रैक्टिस नहीं कर रहे हैं, 4 पेज डेली वैसे अपने नोट्स लिख रहे हैं, हाथ चलना भी जरूरी है और ये आंखें चल, मतलब इनका काम करना परमानेंटली जरूरी है. तो ये आपको इनकलकेट करना पड़ेगा, इसका कोई ट्रिक नहीं है. इसलिए ज्यादातर बच्चे जो कंपाइलेशन पढ़ के सोचते करंट अफेयर्स हो गए, वो ज्यादातर सक्सेसफुल नहीं हो पाते. कंपाइलेशन वर्क एज ए सप्लीमेंट्री सोर्स. आपने खुद मेहनत की है, आपको लगता है 1-2 चीज मिस हो गई होंगी, गुड, कंपाइलेशन यू कैन गो थ्रू, बट कंपाइलेशन एज ए सोर्स टू प्रिपेयर करंट अफेयर्स इज नॉट नेवर गोइंग टू वर्क. क्योंकि जब आप न्यूज़पेपर में पढ़ते हैं, आपने पढ़ा फॉर एग्जांपल सर्कुलर इकोनॉमी पे, मैं उसी एग्जांपल को यूज करता हूं. सो यू शुड बी एबल टू थिंक. ये आपने पहले जब न्यूज़पेपर में पढ़ा तब आपके दिमाग में आना चाहिए ना कि अच्छा इसको उससे लिंक कर सकते हैं, दैट अगेंस्ट एप्पल देयर इज अ मूवमेंट इन यूएसए, और मोस्ट प्रोबेबली अगर एक अच्छा एडिटोरियल होगा इट वुड मेंशन दैट. सो दैट इज हाउ इट इज गोइंग टू वर्क. सो पिछले 2 से 3 साल में जो मेजर डिबेटेबल इश्यूज रहे हैं वो आपको थोड़ा सा याद रखना पड़ेगा. फॉर एग्जांपल अभी ऑपरेशन सिंदूर की भी बात हुई. सो ऑपरेशन सिंदूर, वन ऑफ द प्रोबेबिलिटी इज that they might ask about the air defense technology. Another thing is geopolitics.
बिल्कुल.
Okay, so अफगानिस्तान के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में पूछ सकते हैं that why Pakistan has been interfering, what is the meaning of strategic depth. तो YR में भी पूछ सकते हैं. Economy they can ask about how important is economics and diplomacy. Okay, so India has become 4th largest economy in nominal terms. How important is it in terms of its geostrategic interest? So ये एक तो इंटरलिंकेजिंग करना, और ये तभी पॉसिबल है ना जब हमने उसको पढ़ा और साथ में बैठ के सोचा भी. सो कंपाइलेशन काम नहीं करेंगे. एक तो कंपाइलेशन कैन वर्क बट एज ए सप्लीमेंट्री सोर्स. और अगर आप कंपाइलेशन यूज कर रहे हैं, लेट्स से आपने ये सब नहीं किया है, तो अब क्या करें? तो ये कि कंपाइलेशन को आप फिनिश करने की जगह कि हमने एक बुक उठाई उसको फिनिश करना, आप उसके 4 पेज पढ़िए, थोड़ा सा सोचिए. यू शुड ऑल्सो हैव थॉट प्रोसेस वर्किंग साइमल्टेनियसली. सो उसके साथ कुछ लिखिए भी. हाँ, टॉपिक को लिखिए, उसको सोचिए कहाँ का लिंक होता है, तब वो काम कर जाएगा.
वेरी गुड स्ट्रेटेजी सर. राजवर्धन सर, हाउ टू बैलेंस बिटवीन द 4 सब्जेक्ट्स ऑफ जीएस? कैसे एक बच्चा जो है इन 4 सब्जेक्ट्स को देखे और कैसे अप्रोच करे? 4 सब्जेक्ट्स नहीं, सॉरी, 4 पेपर्स को देखे और अप्रोच करे.
I think students should should divide their day in certain slots.
Okay.
Right. As for me, 3 slots can be there. 1 slot can be dedicated to optional subject.
Okay.
1 should be dedicated to GS, and the third one, which can be smaller one, for current affairs.
All right.
So that would allow students to study these subjects simultaneously. Right. And then they should plan that let's say in next 15-20 days. One should initially finish, let's say, ethics, because that is the subject that can be more scoring, right? So that can be the subject that one can target initially. And then target-based, let's say, studies can be spaced after 15-20 days. Let's say once you can complete ethics, you can focus upon, let's say, GS1, which is the subject that again can be, let's say, scoring. And GS2 and 3, why I'm saying that they should be studied later, because they are more current oriented. So it may be the case that current affairs of, let's say May to August would also be asked in those papers. So if you study them towards the end, if you revise them towards the end, that would come handy while writing answers as well. So I think simultaneous study of these subjects based upon the slots would help students, let's say, cover syllabus. And that too, one should, again, if let's say I am saying that, okay, in 15-20 days you should cover ethics. So that can be covered if you have a target in test series. Right? If you have test series, that would help you. Let's say, okay, next Sunday I have to write, let's say, paper till the topics given in GS4 syllabus till, let's say, emotional intelligence. So that would help you set the target for yourself as well, and you'll be able to write, and you'll be able to, let's say, complete the syllabus that way. So test series would help you in this spacing of the subjects a lot.
Okay, Prince sir, जो बच्चे फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट देंगे in 2026, what is your advice to them? What should be their approach?
For students writing, appearing for 2026, the first advice will be, don't wait, don't waste your time, start your preparation right from now. And the very first thing that you need to understand, that there cannot be any kind of piecemeal approach. So we should not follow the piecemeal approach. The student should go for the holistic preparation, that is prelims plus mains. Irrespective of the mode, irrespective of the subject they are looking for, तो कौन सी मेथड फॉलो कर रहे हैं, सेल्फ प्रिपरेशन में जा रहे हैं, कैसे प्रिपेयर कर रहे हैं, दैट इज देयर चॉइस, बट दे शुड गो फॉर द होलिस्टिक प्रिपरेशन, प्रीलिम्स प्लस मेंस. Prelims plus mains doesn't mean that you are just taking up the syllabus and you are completing. Prelims plus mains means you have studied one topic. तो सपोज करिए कि आपने एक टॉपिक चाहे पॉलिटी का, चाहे हिस्ट्री का, ज्योग्राफी का पढ़ा, अब उस टॉपिक पे 10 से 15 आप ऑब्जेक्टिव सवाल करिए और उसी टॉपिक पे 1 से 2 आप आंसर राइटिंग करिए. तो जिस भी मोड में आप जा रहे हो, अगर आप सेल्फ प्रिपरेशन के लिए भी जा रहे हो, देन ऑल्सो द टेस्ट सीरीज विल बी नीडेड, एंड द टेस्ट सीरीज शुड बी बोथ दैट could cater the prelims need, that is objective based, as well as the mains subjective.
Alright, sir.
तो 2026 के जो भी स्टूडेंट हैं उनके लिए यही सजेशन रहेगा. इन फैक्ट आई विल सजेस्ट फॉर द 25 ऑल्सो, जो 2025 में ऐसे स्टूडेंट हैं कि जैसे जिनका प्रीलिम्स, कई बार ऐसे स्टूडेंट होते हैं जिनका प्रीलिम्स नहीं होता है किसी भी कारण से. अब प्रीलिम्स नहीं होता है और उन्होंने पहले दे हैव डन ऑल द थिंग्स, तो अब वो क्या, what they should do? So I think they should, because their normal preparation, conventional preparation has been done. लेकिन अब उनको अगले 11 महीने तक, 10 महीने तक अपने आप को एग्जाम रेडी भी रखना है, मोटिवेट भी रखना है. तो क्योंकि प्रीलिम्स जब सिलेक्शन नहीं होता, with our experience of writing this UPSC examination for so many years, I can clearly know that lots of students become devdas. So ऐसी कंडीशन से बचें, तो उसके लिए उनको क्या करना है कि they should go for the guided program, and again it will be the test series. So when it will have test series, तो आपने हो सकता है पहले 15 दिन में, as sir said, कि आप शेड्यूल बनाया, शेड्यूल बनते ही इसीलिए फॉलो नहीं करना. तो स्टूडेंट शेड्यूल बनाएगा, फॉलो नहीं होगा, एंड इट हैपेंस, दैट इज रियलिस्टिक पार्ट. बट द गुड पार्ट इज, लेट्स सपोज दैट यू आर कमिंग इन माय टेस्ट सीरीज, तो ठीक है, आपने पहले वीक में, पहला वीक जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी का टेस्ट है, दूसरा वीक क्लाइमेटोलॉजी का टेस्ट है, तो पहला वीक में आपने जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी किसी भी कारण से नहीं पढ़ पाए, आप टेस्ट नहीं दे पाए. दूसरे वीक में अगर आप खुद से प्रिपरेशन करेंगे, अगर आप किसी टेस्ट सीरीज के साथ नहीं जाएंगे, तो फिर दूसरे वीक में आप जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी उठाएंगे, हो सकता है फिर से ना पढ़ पाए, तीसरे वीक में फिर से आप जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी. बट व्हेन यू आर फॉलोइंग अ गाइडेड प्रोग्राम, तो एक टॉपिक मान लीजिए आप किसी भी कारण से, इट कैन बी जेन्युइन ऑल्सो, नॉट ऑलवेज आई एम सेइंग कि स्टूडेंट इज लेजी, तो जेन्युइन रीजन हो सकता है, हेल्थ रीजन, किसी भी कारण से, बट दे कैन कैच. And in this way, they can at least cover the remaining part of the syllabus. Let's say there is 10 chapter. तो एक चैप्टर, 2 चैप्टर नहीं हुआ तो आपका 8 चैप्टर कवर हो जाएगा. लेकिन अगर आप खुद से प्रिपरेशन करने जाते हैं, तो हो सकता है you are wasting your time for the 2 months in only 2 chapter. At the end of the day, एग्जाम तो सबको लिखना है. तो एग्जाम जिसका पीटी के बाद सिलेक्शन हुआ है, जिसकी प्रिपरेशन है उसको भी लिखना है, और जिसकी प्रिपरेशन है आंसर राइटिंग, जिसने एक भी आंसर राइटिंग नहीं किया है वो भी जाएगा लिखेगा। तो उसको तो जाना ही है। आप अगर आप वो 11 में है टीम ऑर्डर में, तो आपको तो जाना ही, जबकि पता है कि मैच हाथ से निकल गया है। सो माय सजेशन विल बी, डोंट वेट, beat your 25, 26, go with the guided answer writing program, and other than this you can identify the area जहां पे भी आपका गैप हो। अगर आपको गैप हो तो क्रैश कोर्स करिए, फाउंडेशन करिए, कंटेंट अपग्रेडेशन इज नीडेड।
बिल्कुल सर। सर, मैसेज टू दो स्टूडेंट्स हु कुड नॉट मेक इट, मतलब उन्हें पता है कि दे आर नॉट राइटिंग मेंस, मैसेज टू देम सर। आई थिंक थोड़ा इमोशनल स्ट्रेस, जैसे सर ने बोला, देवदास बन जाते हैं, एंड वी एम्पैथाइज, क्योंकि हम में से सबने एक बार तो प्रीलिम्स फेल किया ही है सर। सो
नहीं, आई डिडंट फेल इन
सर, आपने भी नहीं किया। ओके सर, ठीक है।
ओके, फ्रैंकली स्पीकिंग सर हैज सजेस्टेड मोस्ट ऑफ द थिंग्स। ठीक है, दुनिया में सबसे खराब हालत उनकी होती है जिनको उनकी नहीं होती है, जिनको पता है कि वो क्लियर करने वाले हैं, और जिनको ये भी पता है कि वो क्लियर नहीं करने वाले हैं। उनकी कंडीशन ठीक है। सबसे खराब उनकी होती है जिनको ये नहीं पता है कि वो क्लियर करने वाले हैं या नहीं करने वाले हैं। ठीक है, तो आई थिंक आपको ये पूछना चाहिए था कि उनको क्या सजेशन देंगे। एनीवेज, कमिंग टू द पॉइंट, आई थिंक सर हैज sir has discussed everything, beautifully in a very very precise manner. जिनको पता है कि वो नहीं क्लियर करने वाले हैं, आई थिंक द ओनली चॉइस इज टारगेटिंग 2026, एंड सर हैज एग्जैक्टली पॉइंटेड आउट द प्रॉब्लम्स व्हिच आर देयर। यस, अगर आप खुद से करना चाहेंगे, पहले 2 महीने आप वेस्ट करेंगे, लाइक ब्रिंग एनी पेपर, आई कैन गिव इट ऑन द रिटन। ठीक है, आप वेस्ट करेंगे, आपको लगता है अभी हमारे पास बहुत वक्त है करने के लिए, आप पहला 2 महीना वेस्ट करेंगे, एंड दैट इज व्हाई यू शुड नॉट वेस्ट योर टाइम। राइट, अभी से कोई एक ऐसा प्रोग्राम आप ज्वाइन करिए जिस प्रोग्राम में एक लिमिटेड, क्योंकि बहुत सारे प्रोग्राम्स मिलेंगे, बहुत सारे कोचिंग्स में ऐसे प्रोग्राम्स होते हैं जो लंबे पीरियड में स्ट्रेच होते हैं। आप ऐसे प्रोग्राम्स में ज्वाइन करिए जो दिसंबर तक आपको प्रिपेयर करा रहा है मेंस के लिए, और फिर आप प्री ओरिएंटेड बनेंगे। तो आप यू जस्ट एक्सप्लॉइट दीज 5-6 months एंड प्रिपेयर ऑल द पार्ट्स, नॉट ओनली ऑप्शनल बट ऑल्सो जीएस। और मैं बार बार कहता हूं कि दिसंबर तक अगर आपके 75% जो है मेंस का पार्ट रेडी नहीं है, तो फ्रैंकली स्पीकिंग यू आर नॉट रेडी फॉर 2026, राइट? सो दैट शुड बी द टारगेट. So I think, the way it suits, it completely, it is the choice of the students, but they should go for the means preparation for next year.
Right, sir. Right, sir. So friends, सारे faculties ने, we have analyzed the paper of 2025 and we have also shared what has to be done. Obviously, it was not in detail. We'll come up with detailed podcast. I will come with the podcast with Piyush Sir and Piyush Sir, Prince Sir, Rajvardhan Sir, Gaurav Sir, सबके साथ हम लोग बात करेंगे डिटेल में उनके सब्जेक्ट्स के बारे में. दो आई थिंक दिस पॉडकास्ट हैज हेल्प्ड यू इन अ वे कि आपको मोर और लेस अब पता है कि व्हाट हैज टू बी डन इन द नेक्स्ट 2.5 months. डोंट वेस्ट योर टाइम. स्टार्ट योर प्रिपरेशन आफ्टर 2 days of chilling out. ठीक है, okay, after 2 or 3 days of chilling out, and if the need be, you can always connect to us. Be it कि आपने यहाँ पे एडमिशन लिया है या नहीं लिया है, that does not matter. We are there to help you out. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.